Surfing for Change. My name's Thiermann. Up until recently, when I'd go skating, I'd bring a plastic bottle of water with me. When I'd come in from surfing and grab a burrito, I'd take it out in a plastic bag. But then something changed. I took an incredible trip to the North Shore of Oahu. The waves are amazing and it's a beautiful place, but I had no idea that the decisions I make at home have an effect on the people of Hawaii.
The Hawaiian Islands are almost like a filter out here in the Pacific Ocean for plastic. It's not like where you just throw the bottle in the trash and you never have to think about it again, or the plastic bag and you don't think about it again. Here, if you just go to the east side of the island, you'll know exactly where it all goes.
Wait a sec. Is he talking about this plastic bag?
They're like toxic tumbleweeds. You know, they just blow out. And so even when they go to the landfills, which is where the majority of plastic goes, they blow out and they go out to sea, and then they swirl in these gyres and they end up like in Hawaii.
There's no limit to them in terms of globally how far the damages of plastic reach. The dolphins, the sea turtles, the albatross.
Literally millions die because they mistake plastic bags for jellyfish, and they swallow it and then they regurgitate it and feed it to their young, and the young can't do anything, so it kills them.
But I recycle my plastic bag, so where does that go?
The American Chemistry Council, which is the lobbying arm of the plastics industry, wants you to say, just recycle, and we should recycle. But less than 5% of all single-use plastics are ever recycled.
I took a trip to Oahu's recycling center. I found out that they just send it halfway around the world for someone else to deal with.
The little recycling symbol on the bottom of plastics doesn't indicate that it has been recycled or will be recycled. Reduce, reuse become before recycling. Recycling is the last option we do.
Is there a better alternative than recycling my bottle of water?
For a while I thought bottled water was a safer choice, and then I learned it's not even there. Bottled water is less regulated than tap water.
There's one person in the entire country that's supposed to monitor the whole bottled water industry.
They feel toxic to me to touch now, like it's been so long since I've been using them.
It's a huge scam. It's amazing that they've gotten away with it.
I cruised around Oahu and found out that there are businesses all over going plastic-free.
I started having my sales girls say, do you need a bag? And half or more of the people say no.
And it feels good to walk into a place and be like, I don't need that. I have my own bag.
I'll be at the hardware store and be like, oh, I forgot to bring a bag. And then they'll be putting it in the plastic bag, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. And I gotta put the duct tape here, and like, okay, all this junk over here, and like try to carry it out of the store. And you make a fool of yourself sometimes, but it's, you know, it's whatever. It's a good challenge.
Let's take this challenge on. What habits can you change to make your life less plastic? I'm gonna start bringing my own bottle to the skate park, and next time I get a burrito, I'm bringing my own bag. For more simple solutions that have a big impact, type in Surfing for Change next time you're on Facebook.
So there's a song I wrote for World Water Day a couple years back about trying to get rid of single-use plastic water bottles. There's really no need to be such a fancy pants. Put down the plastic water bottles, give the kids a chance, cause the next generation is growing. We gotta be knowing that if we're consuming, we gotta be doing what we can do to reduce our waste. And the best thing to do is don't use single-use plastic. That's it.
Awesome. Very cool.
All right.
Right on.
Yeah, man, nice.
Stoked. Last year, when the tsunami in Japan hit, it sent ocean surges all the way across the Pacific to my hometown of Santa Cruz, California.
Look up there. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
The tsunami affected a lot of people in different ways, and one of the biggest was the nuclear meltdown in Fukushima, Japan. Welcome to Surfing for Change. My name's Thiermann. I wanted to learn more about nuclear power, so I followed this story to South Africa, a country that's proposing to build a nuclear power plant near a wave I'd dreamt about going to since I was a little kid. I'm here in Jeffreys Bay, South Africa, where I'm standing right in front of the best point break in the world. About 40 kilometers away from here, they're proposing the largest nuclear power plant. Nuclear.
Well, I think it's quite a free sort of place in South Africa. Like for surfers, it's like really surfing is the core, what made it.
I rode a bike out to the top of Supers behind Boneyards. I saw like dolphins, I saw whales, and I saw flamingos in the first 5 minutes of looking at the ocean. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
I mean, this is one of the windiest places in the world, and we've got water power, and we've got waves. There are so many alternative things they could do, and they could have done in the last few years. But once again, you know, it's just the easiest, quickest, most money-making scam.
While I was in South Africa, it was easy to see that there's a huge gap between the rich and the poor. And having access to energy can provide people with something as basic as having access to internet or clean water. So the question isn't, do poor people need access to energy? The question is, will nuclear be the best way to provide it? I had a chance to talk to a Japanese surfer named Wakita. Wakita moved his family out of Japan after the meltdown.
My house was 100 kilometers from power plant. I really afraid of radiation for my kids because they're suffering every day.
When I got home, I interviewed a few people who I really respect and asked them what they think about nuclear power for South Africa.
I don't know why anybody would risk one of the most beloved countries in the world, one of the most beautiful countries in the world, for some kind of short-term energy play when there are so many other options available on the African continent.
It'd be just such a terrible problem if they built one and then if anything ever went wrong with it. I mean, you basically just ruin a place forever if something goes wrong with a nuclear power plant.
Even when something doesn't go wrong with a nuclear power plant, they still create radioactive waste that's deadly for hundreds of thousands of years.
Radioactivity can literally fry you, or if you're further away from it, can eat into your bones, eat into your blood cells, and kill you with numerous types of gruesome cancers.
When you have a nuclear power disaster in Japan, the whole world is impacted.
All but 11 of their 50 reactors have been closed down, and the rest could be offline within a year. I think we can learn from that in America. In fact, Germany is learning from that. They've shut down 7 plants already, and they're planning on closing down the rest of them within a decade. And the same thing is happening in Switzerland, it's happening in Spain, it's happening in Israel, it's happening in Mexico.
You would think that the countries that have the most experience with it backing away from it might be a subtle clue that this may not be the right way to go.
At this point, I was ready to hear Van, Kelly, and Foster tell me about the solutions. I knew about wind and solar, and I also learned about some exciting new alternatives.
From all of my research, the energy source that excites me the most is so-called free energy. It accesses energy right out of the space around us, and it goes back as far as Nikola Tesla.
I think a lot of these technologies exist, and I'd actually love to spend the next few years of my life meeting these people and actually seeing the technology.
Why don't we have access to this energy now? Well, there are huge profits to be made by the coal companies, by the oil companies, by the nuclear companies, and they don't want to give that up.
You have a lot of people who are digging holes in the ground, trying to find uranium or coal or oil or natural gas to power the future. And what I'd say is, the world's future is not down those holes.
One of the most important things I learned about energy while I was making this movie is when you give control to a few corporations over a centralized energy source like nuclear, that energy rarely reaches the poorest people. When you have a more decentralized power source, like solar panels on the top of houses, it gives more direct access to the people who need it most.
If you want to see the future, look up. Look at the sun and all that solar power that's coming down. Look at the sky with all the wind and the wind energy. Look into the eyes of the workers who could be building wind turbines or retrofitting houses. If you want to see the future, don't look down those holes. Look up.
Today, one of the main ways change is coming about is through social networking. The recent revolution in Egypt was made possible by people like you connecting on Facebook and Twitter. Connect with Surfing for Change and find out simple actions you can take to stop the proposed plant in Jeffreys Bay. We have the opportunity to be the ones who stand up for new energy technologies that can revolutionize the world and allow us to stop paying checks to dirty energy corporations each month. We have the power to be the generation who learned from Japan, the generation who ran our communities on clean energy, and the generation who had fun doing it. There are all these horses behind me, except they're all striped. It's incredible. Let's see if we can get any closer.
3, 2, 1, skip.
Welcome to Surfing for Change. My name is Kyle Thiermann. I really love to travel. I'm actually happiest when I'm halfway around the world, meeting people who I'd otherwise never get to meet, and surfing waves that I'd otherwise never get to experience. As surfers, we're always searching for the next undiscovered perfect wave. And a lot of times, this leads us to third world countries to find them. Surfing is one of the fastest growing sports in the world, which means two things. First off, it means that you're gonna get burned a lot more often. And secondly, it means that a lot of unlikely third world countries are being reshaped through surf tourism. Through all my travels, I've seen that tourism can be a double-edged sword. Because on one hand, these places will go through huge amount of development, while on the other hand, you see the natural beauty get trashed and the integrity of the culture get compromised. I learned that there's a model called Butler's Curve of Tourism, which theorizes that most places around the world follow the same tourist path.
It starts off with pioneering travelers that come to a special place because of the resource that's there.
These could be like the salty old expats who you'll run into who claim that they've been surfing the wave 30 years before anyone got there, and the waves used to be way better, and they know Jerry Lopez.
Soon following that, there's more and more backpacker type of travelers, which don't need a lot of infrastructure, but they're not just camping outside.
After the backpackers comes a stage in this model called mass tourism. And at mass tourism, there's a point where the amount of people coming to a place begins to level off. Because as you know, a place can't grow forever. But the interesting thing in this model is that at a certain point, tourism begins to decline. An example of this happening is a place called Jaco in Costa Rica, which for a while was known as a really cool tourist destination. But as more and more people started to go there, they weren't able to preserve the natural beauty that people came to experience in the first place.
You've got waste from toilets and hotels going straight out into the break. You've got plastic all over the beaches. You've got prostitution, drugs,
As this boom-bust cycle occurs in the development of a tourism area, communities oftentimes don't have the resources or forethought to plan out what they need.
This is the part of the curve where you start to see a decline, because the natural beauty and the culture that tourists came to see in the first place have actually been destroyed. One of these emerging surf countries is Nicaragua. It's been branded as the next Costa Rica, and over the past decade has experienced huge growth. There's a little town called Gigante, where there's a group of young surfers who have come up with a whole new model of development. I was really excited to learn about this, so I called up my dad, who's a filmmaker, and we got a couple tickets to go down there. We arrive at the airport, and we tell the cab driver that we want to go to Gigante to meet these people and see what they're all about. So he takes us down this dirt road, and we go to the beach, and we end up running into him.
Llegaron pronto.
Sí, mira. Sí.
This is Adam.
How's it going, man?
Kyle, nice to meet you. Father Eric.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Good to see you.
We get set up with a local family, and we're able to take the first part of the trip just checking the place out. There's Costa Rica behind me. Gigante is a pretty small town, and there's a lot of traditional living. There's cowboys, there's fishermen, and you can see that this is basically the way that they've been living for generations. But then you walk 2 coves over, and it turns into tourist land, where there's your American weekend warriors down on the beach getting sunburnt. There's resorts going up. And you can see that this place is transitioning from a fishing economy to a tourist economy right before your eyes. Although it's clear that Nicaragua is changing, one thing continues to remain the same, and that's the waves. Lake Nicaragua creates offshore winds almost year-round, which makes it pretty awesome to surf. We're taking a boat out to a wave outside of Gigante. Gigante, the town, is named after this big mountain, which is the giant's foot. You can kind of see it looks like a foot.
Me gusta calzones, ay te vista Catrina. No más a Mildora, no me pongo un porro. Pasamos la noche que la abra su lagar, cerca del monte de Hollywood.
The organization in Gigante is called Project Wave of Optimism, or WOO for short. We're heading up to the Project WOO office to learn a little bit more about this new model of tourism that they're setting up here in Gigante.
The founders, Adam and Nick, were down here on a surf trip back in 2005, and they saw the potential to implement community-driven development here and use surfing and the surf world as the vehicle to raise awareness and the funding necessary.
Our goal is to create a healthy community that's economically viable, that has local buy-in, and we want to create a global model for a surf town.
I had to ask myself the question, how do the locals feel about outsiders coming into their town and basically setting up shop to do work in their community?
It's absolutely fundamental that the needs and projects are identified by the community. Without their buy-in, these projects can't survive.
As I learned more and spoke with the locals, I found out that at the core of this model is that all of the projects that WU is involved with are being driven by the locals and just facilitated by WU. We're about to go to school on the Gigante school bus.
The bus was a result of a needs assessment in 2008 that resulted in the most pressing need was school transportation to get the elementary school students from Gigante to be able to attend school in Tola, which is about 20 kilometers away.
Without the bus, the kids weren't going to school after 6th grade. You know, a lot of the kids would be pulled with their parents to go out fishing or, you know, work in the fields.
Hizo primer reunión en el pueblo y la gente, no tenemos transporte, queremos bus.
Since its inception, we've seen an 81% increase in active high school students.
WU runs a bunch of really cool programs, from the bus to community garden to doing arts and crafts with the kids to a day where they get tourists and locals on the beach together to play games to promote cultural understanding. There's also a woman named Courtney who's starting the first plastic-free hotel in the world.
My goal in creating a plastic-free hotel here in Nicaragua is to make it as easy as possible for surfers to have a positive impact on the communities that they're visiting.
One day we drove to San Juan, which is one of the most established tourist destinations in all of Nicaragua. I'm standing at the bay of San Juan del Sur, and the reason we're here is because some people say that this is what Gigante could turn into.
There's a lot of drugs all around these corners. Actually, these are the colectivo taxis, and basically anything you want, you can get here. And as a white person, they'll ask you if you want a lot of those things that they expect travelers to want.
As we were walking through San Juan, it made me realize that this was just another town following Butler's curve of tourism. When you think about it though, it'd be hard for locals to resist this destructive path, because in a lot of cases, they've been living in abject poverty for generations. And now all of a sudden they have this awesome wave in their backyard that's bringing money into their lives. So they're understandably motivated to bring surfers whatever they think they want, even if that's overdevelopment or selling drugs, which gets all the locals addicted and turns the place into a shady town and is actually the thing that keeps surfers from coming back. It was coming to the end of our trip, and on our drive back to the airport, I couldn't help notice how excited I felt about the fact that here's this group of young surfers who are helping a community take advantage of tourism and not be destroyed in the process.
Because we really are at this kind of fork in the road with regards to surf development and coastal development, and it's a key time to prove that there's something else that we can do.
I was thinking about all of the developing countries I've traveled to. And it hit me that as a surfer, I was never just observing these places. I was participating in their future with every decision I made. And as surfers and tourists, we have a huge amount of power to make decisions that ensure that the beauty we go to see these places for in the first place is there next time we come back. Sometimes I get overwhelmed when I think about all the problems in the world we face today. But I learned about one simple thing I can do to help my neighborhood and the environment at the same time.
Our economy is in a lot of trouble, and one of the things that we're seeing is a huge rise in unemployment. And unemployment is bad for the economy, it's bad for the security of our neighborhoods, it's bad for our emotional health, it's bad for everything. It's not a good situation. When you buy from local stores, a bigger percentage of that money stays in the community.
When you spend $100 at a local store, 45 continues to circulate in the local economy, whereas only 13 stays in the community if you buy from a box store.
If you buy from a multinational corporation, the bulk of that money is going to its headquarters. That money is being siphoned out of your community, so we're bleeding our communities dry while we're enriching the coffers of some far-off multinational.
I know when I buy a sweatshirt at my local surf shop, that money that I spend there is going to be spent again in the community, and it will continue to circulate here, eventually just creating more jobs for Santa Cruz.
And that money then can go to providing good schools, providing good, healthy, clean, green jobs, keeping our own neighborhoods healthy and strong and vibrant.
Even when you're buying locally, aren't most clothes still made in other countries? I was thinking about how I'm affecting people all over the world when I buy a t-shirt. So I took this idea a little further and made a trip happen with award-winning photographer Daniel Russo.
And we're off.
Sri Lanka is an awesome country with great waves and cool people. It's also one of the largest clothing exporters worldwide. Daniel and I visited a factory, and I was surprised to find out that because of consumer pressure back home, conditions are improving for Sri Lankans at this factory.
It's basically they're just being treated much better, and they're being treated like human beings rather than being treated like machines.
Would you not pay an extra buck for that shirt if it meant that you knew that the workers could actually support a family and weren't living in some shanty town somewhere? Without consumer pressure, companies have very little incentive to change their practices.
When you buy a t-shirt and let the store owner know that you care about the people who are making it, that's how change happens. It's the same with environmental conditions also. So I drove down south and asked my sponsors what made them start thinking about the impact their company has on the world.
The turning point was seeing Yvonne Chouinard speak. It just inspired us to come back and change, and we immediately came back and went right into producing organic t-shirts.
Surfers don't understand the power that they truly have to make a difference by what they purchase. So purchasing from a company that is doing right by the environment, it sends a huge message to the industry, and trust me, companies are paying attention.
We make skateboards, so we cut down trees. It's important to us that all the wood used for our skateboards comes from forests that are sustainably harvested.
You're making an impact either way. You're sending a message to the companies that you don't care or you do care.
It's not about being overwhelmed and burdened by new information that you've got to carry around. It's about being liberated. It's about being able to see a way forward in life, about how can I live my day-to-day life in a way that's positive for the planet, positive for my neighbors close by and on the other side of the world.
Traveling, I realized that most people in the world don't even get to choose where they shop. They're just dealing with surviving on a daily basis. It's actually a privilege to be able to choose who you want to include in your economy. So buy locally and shop responsibly. It's simple and it feels great.